3 months after the destruction of the Korthax fleet, the Great Council Chamber on Kepler Prime had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their seats, but none of them spoke. They were all waiting for the humans to arrive. The invitation had been simple and polite, delivered by a human diplomatic vessel that appeared in their system without any warning. The ship's captain had requested an audience with the Galactic Council to discuss recent events and future cooperation. No threats had been made, but every species in the galaxy understood that this was not really a request. Ambassador Zektar of the Velnari nervously adjusted his ceremonial robes as he watched the main entrance to the chamber. His people had been the first to encounter the awakened humans, and the memory of that meeting still gave him nightmares. The human captain had been polite and professional, but there had been something different in his eyes, something ancient and dangerous. "They're here," whispered Historian Prime Yulshara from her elevated seat. The chamber doors opened and a small group of humans entered with calm confidence. Leading them was Captain Jake Morrison, but he no longer wore the simple uniform of an exploration officer. Instead, he was dressed in dark blue clothing that seemed to absorb light, with silver insignia that marked him as a fleet commander of something called the Solar Defense Force. Behind him walked Dr. Lisa Park, who now carried the title of Chief Science Officer. Her eager scientific curiosity had been replaced by a calm authority that spoke of someone who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. Commander Pete Collins followed, but his nameplate now read War Marshal, and the weapons he carried were unlike anything the current galaxy had ever seen. The humans took their places at the central speaking platform with movements that were perfectly coordinated. They didn't need to communicate with each other because they all shared the same tactical awareness that had once conquered half the galaxy. Jake stepped forward and looked around the chamber with eyes that held 50,000 years of accumulated wisdom. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast room. "We come before you today to discuss the future of our galaxy." "We know what you are," called out a voice from the Etherian section. The being of pure energy flickered with nervous light as it spoke. "The archives have told us everything. You are the sleeping gods of war, and now you have awakened." Jake nodded slowly. "Yes. We remember what we once were. We remember commanding fleets that could crack worlds. We remember conquering star systems with tactics that your military schools still cannot understand. We remember why every civilization in the galaxy once feared the name of humanity." A murmur of fear rippled through the assembled representatives. Some species began calculating escape routes, while others wondered if their homeworlds were already surrounded by invisible human ships. "But," Jake continued, his voice growing softer, "we also remember why we chose to forget." Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific mind now enhanced by genetic memories of galactic-scale warfare. 50,000 years ago, humanity stood at the peak of military power. We controlled over half the known galaxy, and no force could stand against us. But we discovered something that our current civilization is only beginning to understand. "What did you discover?" asked Yulshara, though she feared the answer. "That absolute power leads to absolute destruction," Pete Collins replied. "We were so good at warfare that we were in danger of destroying all life in the galaxy, including ourselves. Every victory made us stronger, but it also made us more isolated. Other species feared us so much that they would rather destroy themselves than surrender." Jake looked directly at the section where the Korthax representative sat. The armored alien warrior shifted uncomfortably under the human's gaze. "We could have continued our conquest until every world in the galaxy was under human control. But then what? Rule over a galaxy full of empty worlds? Command fleets with no one left to protect?" "So you chose to forget," Yulshara said quietly. "We chose to sleep," Jake confirmed. "We used our advanced technology to suppress our own military instincts and start over as a peaceful species. We hoped that other civilizations would grow and develop, while we learned to live without constant warfare." Ambassador Zektar found his voice, though it trembled as he spoke. "But now you have awakened." The Korthax fleet was destroyed so completely that no trace of it remains. Your ships appeared from nowhere and vanished back into space. What are your intentions now?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, and the silence stretched until many representatives began to worry that they had offended the awakened war gods. Finally, he spoke again. "We do not wish to reconquer the galaxy," he said simply. "We have seen what that path leads to, and we have no desire to walk it again. But we also cannot return to the innocence we once had. The genetic locks that kept our memories suppressed have been permanently broken. We will always remember what we are capable of." Dr. Park activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. "Our scientists have been studying the political situation among your species. In the 3 months since our awakening, 17 different conflicts have begun across known space. War fleets are being assembled. Trade routes are being cut. It seems that without the threat of human intervention, many species have decided that now is the time to settle old disputes. That is not our concern," declared a representative from the Rigelian Confederacy. "Galactic politics are not the responsibility of any single species, no matter how powerful." Pete Collins smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You misunderstand our position. We are not offering to intervene in your conflicts. We are informing you that we will not tolerate any conflict that threatens human worlds or human interests." The chamber erupted in angry voices as representatives from dozens of species began shouting at once. Some demanded to know what gave humans the right to dictate galactic policy. Others wanted to know exactly which worlds and interests humans considered their own. Jake raised his hand and the chamber fell silent instantly. The simple gesture carried such authority that even the most aggressive species found themselves unable to speak. "Let me be perfectly clear," Jake said, his voice now carrying the full weight of humanity's ancient power. "We have installations throughout this galaxy that have been dormant for 50,000 years. They are now active and monitoring every star system. We have weapons platforms that your sensors cannot detect, and ships that can cross the galaxy in hours instead of weeks." He paused to let this information sink in before continuing. "But we do not wish to use these capabilities unless we are forced to. We propose a new arrangement for galactic civilization." Dr. Park stepped forward again. "Humanity will serve as a neutral arbitrator for major conflicts. We will not conquer your worlds or impose our government on your people, but we will prevent any war that threatens to destroy entire civilizations." "And if we refuse?" asked the Korthax representative, his voice barely hiding his rage at the destruction of his people's fleet. Pete Collins answered with the calm certainty of someone who had calculated the outcome of the battle before it began. "Then you will learn why your predecessors chose to withdraw from galactic affairs rather than face us in open warfare." Ambassador Zektar looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. Fear was written on every face, but he also saw something else. Relief. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a power strong enough to prevent the kind of devastating wars that had destroyed entire star systems in the past. "What guarantee do we have?" Zekthar asked carefully. "That humanity will not abuse this power as you did 50,000 years ago?" Jake's expression softened slightly. "Because we remember the price of absolute power. We remember the loneliness of standing at the top of the galaxy with no equals, no friends, and no one who could challenge us to be better than what we were. We chose to forget once because we understood that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose when not to use that ability." Dr. Park added, "We have learned that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but making it unnecessary to fight them at all." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. One by one, the species of the galaxy accepted the new reality. Humanity was awake, and they were no longer the primitive explorers who had stumbled into first contact just months ago. They were the sleeping gods of war, and they had chosen to use their power to prevent the very conflicts that had once driven them to forget their nature. In the weeks that followed, conflicts across the galaxy began to cool as word spread of humanity's new role. Trade routes reopened. Diplomatic missions that had been suspended for decades resumed their work. It was not peace exactly, but it was stability enforced by beings who understood warfare so completely that they had chosen to move beyond it. Captain Jake Morrison, now fleet commander of the Solar Defense Force, stood on the bridge of humanity's first new warship in 50,000 years. The vessel, named the UES Remembrance, was a monument to both human military capability and human restraint. It carried enough firepower to level a planet, but its primary mission was to prevent the need for such destruction. Status Re. The conference room on Nexus Prime buzzed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what many believed would be their final meeting. The war against the Zephyrian Empire had been going badly for 3 long years, and hope was running out fast. Ambassador Lisa Grant sat quietly at the far end of the massive circular table, her simple human attire standing out among the elaborate costumes and natural features of the other species. Around her, the most powerful beings in the known galaxy argued with increasing desperation. Admiral Korath, a towering Thaxon warrior with 4 arms and skin like polished stone, slammed his fist on the table. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber as he spoke. "We have lost 17 systems in the past month alone. The Zephyrians are moving faster than we can respond. Their biomechanical ships heal themselves faster than we can damage them." High Counselor Zara 9, the Corellian representative, processed data through the neural implants that covered half her pale blue head. Her voice came out as a mechanical whisper. "My calculations show a 93% probability of total defeat within 6 standard months. We lack the resources to match their production capabilities." The Valorian delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a crystal shell, flickered with distress. Its telepathic voice echoed in everyone's minds. "Even our psychic abilities cannot penetrate the Zephyrian biomechanical consciousness. They have somehow created a species that thinks and feels as one entity." Lisa listened to each speaker, taking careful notes on her simple tablet device. The other delegates barely acknowledged her presence. To them, humanity was just another minor species that had recently achieved space travel. Earth had only made first contact 50 years ago, and most galactic citizens saw humans as primitive newcomers. Commander Jake Murphy, the only other human in the room, sat behind Lisa as a military observer. He had been studying the tactical reports for weeks, and what he saw troubled him. The coalition forces were fighting the same way they had for thousands of years, but their enemy had evolved beyond traditional warfare. Admiral Korath continued his report. "The Zephyrian fleet uses biomechanical hybrid technology that repairs damage during battle. Their ships grow stronger as they fight. Our energy weapons barely slow them down, and their numbers seem endless." "What about the new quantum torpedoes?" asked the delegate from Proxima Union, a fish-like being whose gills fluttered nervously. Zara 9's implants flashed red. "Field tests show minimal effectiveness. The Zephyrian bioarmor adapts to new weapons within minutes. They have defeated every technological advantage we possessed." Lisa finally spoke up, her clear voice cutting through the murmur of despair. "Has anyone considered that technology might not be the answer?" The room fell silent. Several delegates turned to look at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed contempt. Admiral Korath's 4 eyes focused on her like she was an interesting insect. "Explain yourself, human," he said with obvious skepticism. Lisa stood up, activating her tablet to display holographic battle reports. "Commander Murphy and I have been analyzing the Zephyrian attack patterns. They follow very specific formations and tactics. Their biomechanical nature makes them incredibly powerful, but it also makes them predictable." High Counselor Zara 9's implants whirred as she processed this information. "Predictable how? Our battle computers have found no exploitable patterns." Jake Murphy stepped forward, his weathered face serious. "That's because your computers are looking for technological weaknesses. We've been studying their behavior patterns, their decision-making processes, their command structure." He gestured to the holographic display, highlighting several recent battles. "Look at these engagements. Every time the Zephyrians encounter unexpected resistance, they fall back to the same 3 formation types. When they face superior numbers, they always target command ships first. When they're winning, they pursue in straight lines. Admiral Korath leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the table. So, efficient tactics are not a weakness. They are when they become habits, Lisa replied. The Zephyrians have been so successful that they've stopped adapting. They expect their enemies to fight in predictable ways, so they respond in predictable ways. The Valorian delegate's crystal shell pulsed with interest. You believe their strength has become a weakness? Exactly, Jake said. Their biomechanical consciousness makes them incredibly coordinated, but it also makes them think alike. They can't imagine tactics that don't fit their experience. Zara 9's implants clicked rapidly. What kind of tactics are you suggesting? Lisa smiled for the first time since entering the room. Human tactics. We've spent thousands of years fighting each other in every environment imaginable. We've learned to be unpredictable because predictable armies lose wars. Your species is barely capable of interplanetary travel, scoffed the delegate from the Crystal Worlds. What could you possibly teach us about galactic warfare? Jake's expression hardened. We've been fighting wars since before your species discovered fire. Earth has seen every type of conflict imaginable. We've learned that superior technology doesn't always win battles. Sometimes it's the soldier who thinks differently that changes everything. Admiral Korath studied the humans with new interest. What exactly are you proposing? Lisa activated another section of her display, showing Earth's military structure. We want to contribute a task force to the defense of the next threatened system, not as support troops, but as an independent command operating under our own tactical doctrine. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. The Corellian counselor's implants flashed yellow with skepticism. Your ships are primitive compared to coalition vessels. Your weapons are based on kinetic projectiles rather than energy systems. Your crews lack the genetic modifications needed for high-stress combat. Our ships are built differently because we think differently, Jake replied. We design for adaptability, not just raw power. Our weapons work in ways the Zephyrians have never encountered. Our crews train for situations that other species would consider impossible. The Valorian delegate projected curiosity through its telepathic link. You truly believe your primitive methods could succeed where our advanced technology has failed? Lisa nodded confidently. We don't think they're primitive. We think they're unexpected. The Zephyrians have adapted to counter your energy weapons, your shielding technology, your formation tactics. They haven't adapted to counter us because they don't know we exist. Admiral Korath's laugh rumbled through the chamber. You want us to bet the survival of entire worlds on untested human theories? You're already losing those worlds with tested coalition theories, Jake pointed out. What do you have to lose by trying something different? The room fell silent as the delegates considered this. The desperation of their situation was obvious to everyone present. Traditional methods had failed repeatedly and time was running out. High Counselor Zara 9 ran probability calculations through her implants. The mathematical risk is acceptable given our current trajectory toward defeat. A small human force could be deployed without compromising existing defensive plans. The Valorian delegate pulsed with agreement. If the humans fail, we lose nothing more than we would lose anyway. If they succeed, we gain valuable tactical intelligence. Admiral Korath looked directly at Lisa, his four eyes studying her carefully. You understand that if your task force fails, it will likely be destroyed completely? The Zephyrians show no mercy to defeated enemies. We understand the risks, Lisa replied steadily. But we also understand the alternative. If the galaxy falls to the Zephyrians, humanity falls with it. We'd rather fight and lose than surrender without trying. After several minutes of discussion among the delegates, Admiral Korath called for a formal vote. The decision was close, but the coalition agreed to allow humanity to deploy a task force to the next threatened system. As the meeting ended, Lisa contacted Earth Command through her secure communication device. General Patricia Cole's face appeared on the small screen, her expression serious but determined. How did it go, Ambassador? They've agreed to let us try, General. We'll be defending the Helios system. How soon can you have a task force ready? General Cole smiled grimly. We've been ready for weeks, Lisa. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do when we stop playing by everyone else's rules. The first phase of humanity's entry into the Galactic War had begun. None of the alien delegates realized they had just witnessed a turning point that would reshape the balance of power across the known universe. The secure conference room beneath Earth Command buzzed with activity as General Patricia Cole spread holographic star charts across the main table. The room's walls displayed real-time data streams from across the galaxy, showing Zephyrian fleet movements and coalition defensive positions. Colonel Danny Wright studied the tactical displays with intense focus. His weathered face showed the experience of 30 years in Earth's military, including conflicts that had taught humanity hard lessons about warfare. Next to him, Admiral Susan Blake reviewed ship deployment schedules on her tablet, occasionally, making notes with quick, efficient movements. The Helios system has 3 inhabited planets and a major shipping route, General Cole explained to her assembled staff. Intelligence reports suggest the Zephyrians will attack within 2 weeks. The Coalition expects us to arrive, get destroyed quickly, and prove that human involvement was a mistake. Intelligence Director Frank Hayes looked up from his data screens. Our long-range sensors have been monitoring Zephyrian communications for months. Their command structure relies on biochemical signals that travel through their ships like a nervous system. Every vessel in their fleet receives and responds to these signals instantly. That level of coordination makes them incredibly effective, Admiral Blake observed. But it also creates dependencies. What happens if those signals get disrupted? Frank smiled grimly. That's exactly what we're going to find out. Dr. Kevin Lee's xenobiology team has been working on compounds that interfere with biomechanical neural pathways. If we can disrupt their command signals, their perfect coordination becomes chaos. Colonel Wright activated a different display showing human ship designs compared to coalition vessels. The contrast was dramatic. Where alien ships featured smooth, elegant curves and gleaming energy arrays, human vessels looked angular and brutal, covered in armor plating and bristling with various weapon systems. The aliens designed their ships like works of art, Wright said. Beautiful, efficient, optimized for their preferred fighting style. We design our ships like tools, ugly, reliable, and adaptable to whatever situation we encounter. General Cole nodded approvingly. That's going to be our advantage. They expect enemies to fight the way they fight. We're going to fight the way we fight. Across the base, Captain Tony Chen walked through the hangar bay of the destroyer UES Falcon. His ship was a perfect example of human military philosophy. Instead of elegant curves, the Falcon had hard angles and redundant armor. Instead of a single powerful energy weapon, it carried dozens of different systems ranging from kinetic projectiles to electronic warfare equipment. Major Lucy Barnes met him at the ship's boarding ramp. Her Marine unit was loading equipment that would have puzzled alien observers. Where coalition forces carried advanced energy rifles and personal shields, Barnes's Marines packed conventional firearms, explosives, and cutting tools designed for close-quarters combat. "How are the preparations going, Major?" Chen asked as they watched the loading process. "Better than expected, Captain. The boys and girls are excited about finally getting to show what human Marines can do. We've been training for zero gravity, boarding actions, and ship-to-ship combat. Coalition forces consider that kind of fighting primitive, but primitive tactics work when nobody expects them." Chen smiled as he watched a Marine load what appeared to be a simple steel crowbar into his equipment pack. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. The Zephyrians have biomechanical systems that can adapt to energy weapons and advanced technology. They've probably never encountered a Marine with basic tools and determination. Meanwhile, in the intelligence section, Lieutenant Commander Betty Adams worked with a team of communication specialists to analyze Zephyrian signal patterns. Her screens showed complex waveforms and data structures that represented enemy fleet communications. The Zephyrians broadcast their tactical instructions on predictable frequencies, she explained to her team. Their biomechanical nature requires constant coordination between organic and mechanical components. If we can jam these signals or broadcast false information, we can turn their greatest strength into a weakness. Sergeant Paul Green, a communication specialist, looked up from His workstation. We've identified 17 different command frequencies. The Zephyrians seem to use different signals for different types of orders. Movement commands, targeting instructions, damage reports, they all have distinct patterns. Can we replicate those patterns? Adams asked. Better than that, Green replied with a grin. We can create fake signals that look authentic but contain contradictory information. Imagine a Zephyrian ship receiving simultaneous orders to attack and retreat, or targeting coordinates that point at their own allies. In the xenobiology lab, Dr. Kevin Lee examined samples of Zephyrian biomechanical material captured from previous battles. The alien technology fascinated and disturbed him in equal measure. Under his microscope, he could see organic tissue, seamlessly integrated with mechanical components, creating something that was neither fully alive nor completely artificial. The integration is incredible, he told his research assistant, Dr. Marie Clark. The organic components grow around the mechanical parts like living metal. But that same integration creates vulnerabilities. The organic tissue requires specific chemical signals to function properly. Dr. Clark studied the readouts from their latest experiments. The synthetic pheromones we've developed cause the organic components to reject the mechanical parts. It's like an autoimmune response, but in reverse. Instead of the body attacking foreign objects, we make the foreign objects attack the body. How effective is the compound? Lee asked. In laboratory conditions, complete system failure within minutes. The organic and mechanical components literally tear themselves apart trying to separate. But we won't know how it works in actual combat until we test it on active Zephyrian vessels. Back in the command center, Admiral Blake reviewed the final deployment plans with General Cole. The human task force would consist of 12 ships, including destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels. Compared to typical coalition fleets, it was tiny. Compared to human expectations, it was more than enough. The coalition admirals think we're sending a token force to get destroyed for political reasons, Blake said. They have no idea we've been preparing for this war since first contact. General Cole pulled up personnel files on her screen. Captain Roy Davis will command the Raptor. He's our best expert on ramming attacks and close-quarters ship combat. Captain Janet Stone will take the cruiser Thunder. She specializes in electronic warfare and disruption tactics. What about overall tactical command? Blake asked. Captain Chen gets field command of the task force. He's fought in more ship actions than any other human officer, and he understands how to coordinate unconventional tactics with multiple vessels. The preparation continued around the clock as Earth's military machine mobilized for humanity's first major galactic conflict. The training facilities' Marine units practiced boarding actions against mock-ups of Zephyrian ships. In the simulation rooms, ship crews ran through combat scenarios that emphasized adaptability over firepower. Commander Lisa Hayes supervised the loading of special weapons onto the human vessels. These included kinetic impactors designed to punch through energy shields, nuclear warheads that the Zephyrians had never encountered, and cyber warfare viruses specifically programmed to attack biomechanical systems. The aliens fight clean wars with energy weapons and shields, she explained to the weapons officers. We fight dirty wars with explosives and viruses. They're not prepared for our methods because they've never needed to be. As the human fleet prepared to depart, General Cole addressed the assembled crews through the communication system. Her voice carried to every ship in the task force, reaching thousands of men and women who would soon face an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. In a few hours, you'll enter combat against the most powerful military force the galaxy has ever seen, she said. The Zephyrians have destroyed entire civilizations with their biomechanical fleets. They expect us to fight like every other species they've conquered. They expect predictable tactics, familiar weapons, and conventional strategies. She paused, looking out at the fleet through her office window. They're about to learn that humans don't fight like anyone else. We adapt, we improvise, and we never give up. Show them what Earth's warriors can do when we stop playing by their rules. The human fleet departed Earth with minimal fanfare, carrying weapons and tactics that would soon shock the galaxy. Behind them, they left a world that had been dismissed as primitive and irrelevant. Ahead of them lay a battle that would prove humanity's place among the stars was earned, not given. The space around Helios Prime erupted in brilliant flashes of light as the Zephyrian invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Captain Tony Chen watched from the bridge of the UES Falcon as hundreds of biomechanical ships materialized in perfect formation, their living hulls pulsing with organic energy. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Sam Parker at the communication station. "There are so many of them." Chen studied the enemy fleet through his tactical display. The Zephyrian vessels looked like massive sea creatures crossed with machines, their hulls rippling with biomechanical tissue that seemed to breathe. Energy weapons mounted along their sides glowed with an eerie blue light that suggested they were more grown than built. "Admiral Korath's fleet is moving to intercept," reported the sensor officer. "Coalition forces are forming Standard Battle Formation 7. Through his view screen, Chen could see the Coalition fleet moving into their traditional defensive pattern. Thaxan battleships formed the center line with their heavy armor and powerful weapons. Corellian cruisers took flanking positions, their advanced shields shimmering in space. Valorian energy beings provided psychic coordination, their crystal ships glowing with telepathic power. The human task force held back, watching as the two massive fleets prepared to engage. Chen's 12 ships looked tiny compared to the hundreds of vessels arrayed before them, but he knew appearances could be deceiving. "All human ships, this is Captain Chen," he broadcast on the secure channel. "Hold position and observe. Let's see how they fight before we show them how we fight." The battle began with the traditional exchange of long-range energy fire. Coalition ships launched bright beams of concentrated power, while Zephyrian vessels responded with bioplasma projectiles that twisted through space like living things. The space between the fleets filled with explosions and energy discharges. "Major," Lucy Barnes stood behind Chen, watching the battle unfold. "Their formation is exactly what Commander Murphy predicted," she observed. "Perfect coordination, but completely predictable." Chen nodded as he studied the Zephyrian movements. "Look at how they communicate. Every command pulse travels through their entire fleet simultaneously. They're not individual ships, they're organs in a larger organism." Lieutenant Commander Betty Adams worked frantically at her station, analyzing the enemy communication patterns. "I'm reading biochemical signals on 17 different frequencies," she reported. "Just like our intelligence predicted. Their command structure is completely dependent on these neural pathways." The Coalition fleet began to suffer casualties as Zephyrian bioweapons adapted to their energy shields. Admiral Korath's flagship took heavy damage when a bioplasma torpedo somehow passed through its defensive barriers, leaving burning organic matter that spread across the hull like infection. "The Zephyrians are learning from each attack," Chen observed. "Their ships are literally evolving during the battle. Coalition weapons that worked 5 minutes ago are now useless." Captain Roy Davis's voice crackled over the communication system from the destroyer Raptor. "Captain Chen, we're watching good ships die out there. When do we join the fight?" Chen watched as another Coalition cruiser exploded under concentrated bioweapon fire. The Corellian vessel's advanced technology proved worthless against an enemy that adapted faster than they could adjust their tactics. "Now," Chen decided, "all ships execute Plan Delta. Lieutenant Adams, begin electronic warfare operations. Major Barnes, prepare your Marines for boarding actions." The human fleet suddenly broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Zephyrian lines. To both sides of the conflict, it looked like a suicide charge. 12 small ships rushing headlong into hundreds of enemy vessels that had just proven their superiority over Coalition technology. Adams activated her communication jamming equipment, flooding the Zephyrian command frequencies with false signals. "Broadcasting fake neural commands now," she reported. "I'm telling half their fleet to retreat while ordering the other half to advance." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Zephyrian ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly began contradicting each other. Some vessels turned away from the battle while others accelerated forward, creating confusion in their previously ordered ranks. Captain Davis's Raptor reached the enemy line first, its armored hull bristling with kinetic weapons that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Instead of trying to match their bioplasma weapons with energy fire, Davis opened up with railguns that launched solid projectiles at tremendous velocity. The Zephyrian biomechanical hulls, designed to absorb and adapt to energy weapons, had no defense against simple kinetic impact. Steel projectiles punched through living armor like bullets through flesh, causing massive trauma to the organic components of enemy ships. "Direct hit on Target 7, reported Davis. "Their hull is bleeding some kind of fluid. I don't think they know how to repair physical damage." Chen brought the Falcon alongside a Zephyrian cruiser, matching its speed and position. "Major Barnes, you're clear for boarding action." Barnes and her Marines launched themselves from the Falcon's cargo bay in small assault pods, using magnetic grapples to attach to the enemy hull. Where coalition forces would have used energy cutters, the Marines employed simple thermite charges and plasma torches to burn through the biomechanical armor. "We're inside," Barnes reported through her radio. "This place is like being inside a living creature. The walls are breathing and there's some kind of circulatory system running through the corridors." The Marines advanced through the Zephyrian ship using tactics no other species had ever employed. Instead of engaging the biomechanical defenders in energy weapon firefights, they used explosive charges to destroy critical organic nodes, severing the connections between the ship's living and mechanical components. Meanwhile, Dr. Kevin Lee's bioweapon was deployed for the first time in actual combat. Human ships released clouds of synthetic nanobots programmed to interfere with Zephyrian biomechanical interfaces. The microscopic machines spread through space like invisible fog, seeking organic tissue to infect. The first Zephyrian ship to encounter the bioweapon began convulsing in space. Its hull rippled and twisted as organic components rejected mechanical parts, creating cascade failures throughout the vessel's systems. Within minutes, the massive biomechanical cruiser was dead in space, its organic and mechanical parts literally tearing themselves apart. "It's working," reported Dr. Lee from his monitoring station. "The synthetic pheromones are causing systemic rejection responses in their biomechanical systems. They're essentially having allergic reactions to their own technology." Captain Janet, Stone's cruiser Thunder, demonstrated another uniquely human tactic as it engaged 3 Zephyrian vessels simultaneously. Instead of trying to outgun them, Stone used electronic warfare to turn their coordination against them. "I'm broadcasting targeting data that identifies each enemy ship as a coalition vessel," Stone reported. "Their automated systems are acquiring locks on each other instead of us." The confused Zephyrian ships opened fire on their own allies while Stone's Thunder picked them off with kinetic weapons and cyber viruses. The enemy's perfect coordination had become a liability when their own sensors couldn't distinguish friend from foe. Admiral Korath watched in amazement from his damaged flagship as the human ships carved through the Zephyrian fleet like predators, through prey. The tactics were unlike anything he had ever seen, combining primitive brutality with sophisticated deception. "How are they doing this?" he asked his tactical officer. "Their ships are inferior to ours, their weapons are primitive, their numbers are tiny." The Thaxan officer studied his displays with growing understanding. "They're not fighting the same battle we're fighting, Admiral. We're trying to out-technology the enemy. They're trying to outthink them." The tide of battle had completely reversed. Zephyrian ships, which had seemed invincible minutes earlier, now fled in disorder as their biomechanical systems failed under human attack. Some vessels tried to retreat while others fired wildly at targets their confused sensors couldn't properly identify. Chen coordinated the human attack from the Falcon's bridge, directing his ships like a conductor leading an orchestra. "Captain Davis, pursue the fleeing." "Command vessel. Captain Stone, assist Major Barnes with the boarding operation. All ships maintain electronic warfare operations." The Zephyrian fleet commander, a biomechanical hybrid being that had never experienced defeat, tried desperately to regain control of the situation. But human jamming made communication impossible, human bioweapons made coordination deadly, and human tactics made prediction useless. Within 3 hours, the Battle of Helios was over. The Zephyrian invasion fleet, which had conquered dozens of systems with ease, retreated in complete disorder. Behind them, they left disabled ships, confused survivors, and the first major coalition victory in 3 years of war. As the enemy fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Chen allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had just announced Its arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. The news of humanity's victory at Helios spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In the Grand Council chambers of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were called as government leaders tried to understand what had just happened. The impossible had occurred. A tiny human fleet had defeated a massive Zephyrian invasion force using tactics no one had ever seen before. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood before the assembled galactic representatives, no longer the ignored newcomer from a primitive world. The same delegates who had dismissed humanity weeks earlier now hung on her every word as she explained the battle results. The Zephyrian fleet suffered 70% casualties, she reported to the stunned assembly. 37 ships destroyed, 42 disabled, and the remainder retreated in complete disorder. Coalition losses were minimal, primarily damage sustained before human forces engaged. Admiral Korath, his massive Thaxan frame still bearing bandages from the battle, spoke with newfound respect. I have fought in over 200 space battles. I have never seen anything like what your species accomplished at Helios. You turned our certain defeat into total victory in less than 3 hours. High Counselor Zara 9's neural implants flickered rapidly as she processed the tactical data. My analysis computers cannot explain the human success rate. Your ships were outgunned, outnumbered, and technologically inferior. By all calculations, you should have been destroyed within minutes. Lisa smiled at the Corellian's confusion. Your computers are looking for technological explanations for a tactical victory. We didn't win because our ships were better. We won because we fought differently. The chamber filled with murmurs of discussion as delegates tried to understand the implications. The Valorian representative, its crystal form pulsing with curiosity, projected thoughts to the assembly. If humanity can defeat the Zephyrians so easily, why have we been losing to them for 3 years? Because you've been fighting them the way they expect to be fought, came a new voice from the chamber entrance. General Patricia Cole entered, with a full military escort, her presence commanding immediate attention. Behind her walked Admiral Susan Blake, Colonel Danny Wright, and a dozen other human officers. The sight of so many human military personnel in the sacred council chambers would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. Now, no one dared to object, as General Cole approached the central podium. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered dozens of civilizations using the same basic strategy, Cole explained, activating a holographic display that showed enemy expansion patterns. They attack with overwhelming biomechanical superiority, adapt to whatever resistance they encounter, and win through superior coordination and technology. Colonel Wright stepped forward, pointing to specific battle records. Every species they've fought has tried to match their technology with better technology. Energy weapons against bioplasma, advanced shields against adaptive weapons, coordination against coordination. They've learned to counter every conventional tactic. Admiral Blake activated another display showing human ship designs compared to coalition vessels. We didn't try to match their technology. We used completely different approaches that they'd never encountered before. Kinetic weapons against energy-adapted armor, electronic warfare against biochemical communication, chaos against coordination. The delegate from the crystal worlds, a being made of living mineral, resonated with skepticism. You defeated one fleet through surprise. The Zephyrians will adapt to your methods just as they adapted to ours. General Cole's expression grew serious. That's why we're here. We're not offering you a single victory. We're offering you a new way to fight this war. But it requires every member of the coalition to change how they think about warfare. She gestured to her officers, who began distributing tactical manuals to the assembled delegates. We've developed comprehensive strategies that combine human adaptability with your technological advantages. The result will be military capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. Captain Marie Johnson entered the chamber at that moment, fresh from a demonstration that had left coalition military observers speechless. Her cruiser Thunder had just completed war games against a Corellian dreadnought, using human tactics to defeat a ship 5 times her size. The simulation results speak for themselves. Johnson reported to the assembly. Human adaptive tactics combined with coalition technology create force multipliers that the Zephyrians cannot counter. We don't just win battles, we make victory inevitable. Admiral Korath studied the tactical data with growing excitement. Your methods could be applied to our existing fleets. Thaxan warriors using human boarding tactics. Corellian technology enhanced with human electronic warfare. Valorian psychic abilities directed through human strategic thinking. High Counselor Zara 9's implants process the possibilities at tremendous speed. Probability calculations show exponential improvement in combat effectiveness. The combination of our resources with human methodology creates tactical options that exceed the sum of individual capabilities. The Valorian delegate projected enthusiasm through its telepathic link. We have been thinking like our enemies, trying to match their strengths with similar strengths. Humanity thinks like predators, using different strengths to exploit enemy weaknesses. Dr. Lisa Martinez, head of human xenobiology research, joined the presentation with data about the bioweapon success at Helios. Our synthetic compounds disrupted Zephyrian biomechanical interfaces with 97% effectiveness. Combined with coalition medical technology, we can develop countermeasures for their entire biological weapons arsenal. The implications were staggering. For 3 years, the galaxy had been helpless against Zephyrian biomechanical supremacy. Now, humanity had proven that the enemy's greatest strength could be turned into a critical weakness. Meanwhile, intelligence. Reports were arriving from across Zephyrian space. The enemy's reaction to their defeat at Helios was exactly what human strategists had predicted: panic and confusion. Intelligence Director Frank Hayes shared intercepted communications with the assembly. Zephyrian High Command is in chaos. They're calling emergency conferences, recalling fleets from active campaigns, and demanding explanations for what they're calling impossible defeat conditions. The intercepted messages painted a picture of an empire that had never faced a serious setback. Zephyrian commanders who had conquered entire sectors were now questioning their basic assumptions about warfare. Some reports suggested that biomechanical entities were experiencing system failures simply from the stress of incomprehensible defeat. They built their entire military doctrine on the assumption that biomechanical superiority was absolute, explained Colonel Wright. We've proven that assumption false, and they don't know how to adapt to being wrong. General Cole activated a galaxy-wide strategic display showing Zephyrian territory and coalition space. This is our opportunity. While they're confused and reorganizing, we can launch coordinated offensives using combined human coalition tactics. We can take back systems they've held for years. The transformation in the council chamber was remarkable. Delegates who had arrived expecting to discuss surrender terms were now planning offensive operations. The same species that had been helpless against Zephyrian expansion were suddenly considering how to drive the enemy back to their home systems. Ambassador Lisa Grant watched the discussions with satisfaction. Humanity had not only proven its military worth but had given the galaxy something it had lost: hope. The coalition was no longer a desperate alliance of failing civilizations. It was becoming a unified force capable of challenging the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Admiral Blake presented the final element of humanity's strategy: joint training programs that would spread human tactical knowledge throughout coalition forces. We're proposing immediate establishment of combined warfare academies on 12 worlds. Human instructors will teach adaptive tactics while coalition specialists share advanced technology. The vote was unanimous. Every delegate approved the expanded human role in galactic defense. The species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers was now recognized as the key to victory against an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. As the session ended, Admiral Korath approached General Cole privately. I must ask you something. That troubles me. Your tactics at Helios were so effective, so perfectly suited to defeat the Zephyrians. Did you plan for this war before it began? General Cole's expression remained neutral. We've been planning for every possible war since we learned we weren't alone in the universe. The day we made first contact, we started preparing for the day someone would try to conquer us. The Thaxan admiral nodded slowly. Your species learns, from conflict in ways we never imagined. Perhaps that is why you will succeed where we failed. The galaxy had found its champions in the most unlikely place, a small blue world whose people had spent millennia fighting each other, learning lessons that would now save countless civilizations from conquest and destruction.